Join me now in welcoming Asif from Double Fine. Asif, are you there?
I am. How's it going?
It's going well. It's going well. Thank you so much for joining me. That was a fantastic piece. We're going to get to it in just a second. But you mentioned you're not here. You don't have much in game development. Can you tell us what you do at Double Fine to start off?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm working as a level designer right now on the project. But before that, I was part of the documentary crew that's been making a series about Double Fine for the last 8 years. So it's been a bit of a shift.
8 years for documentary. That's fascinating. And again, we're going to talk about this journey because going from someone who's making sort of documenting Double Fine's journey to being a level designer, that is a fascinating jump. So let's get your gut reaction on that piece that you just saw. What were your thoughts?
I mean, it's really wild to see. It just feels like this crazy time capsule in a way, and not just of my own time there, but just in the history of folks that have come through and gone since then, and the projects that they worked on, and it's just been really wild that no matter who makes up the studio, the spirit of the creativity has always stayed the same, and I think that's just a real testament to the culture that Tim has created there.
Yeah, and I was going to say the main word there is culture. We saw it throughout the entire piece. Not only, I mean, I guess we've seen it over these past few days from various developers, but I think really fostering a creative culture, one where everyone feels like they have the opportunity to contribute an idea. Can you give us a little bit more context into what Amnesia Fortnite is?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a 2-week game jam, basically. And we all stop whatever projects we're currently working on at the studio. And then the floor is sort of opened to anyone at Double Fine to pitch an idea. And it's varied from year to year as to how the projects get selected. Sometimes it's open to the public. Sometimes the studio votes internally. Other times Tim will pick an idea. But we basically arrive at 4 or 5 ideas out of all of those pitches. And then we develop prototypes for those over those 2 weeks.
And it's such a fascinating idea that you would stop sort of development, and we'll get to that in a second. But I want to ask you a very direct question about your game that you developed, because the gods must be hungry. I think Double Fine is sort of known for a very certain type of game. One, it's a little bit wacky, a little bit complex in a way. What inspired you to create the gods must be hungry? Where did that come from?
Oh man. I haven't thought about that project in a while, but really, like, my main hobby is cooking. So I spend a lot of time just watching cooking shows, cooking videos, everything from like the instructional stuff to the competitive shows. And I love Food Wars, the anime. So like, I think all of those things have just sort of come together. And obviously some cooking games as well, like Overcooked. The influence of that can't be overstated. So.
Yeah, I mean, I will say Overcooked is one of those games you shouldn't play with friends, but definitely a great game. And you'll probably lose a few of the friends. But let's go back to that creative environment, because I think, we have a lot of developers that are watching and they want to figure out, like, how do they get in that creative space? What advice would you give other developers looking to jumpstart creativity specifically on their team?
Sure. I mean, I think the biggest thing, like, especially for me, like coming from such a different background with filmmaking, I think the best advice I can give someone is to do things other than just play games, or don't just play video games. Play board games, watch movies, read books, listen to music, take up a physical hobby that you have to use your hands to get involved in. Ideas come from like all sorts of crazy places, and you might be just like cleaning up around the house or vacuuming one day, and then suddenly you're coming up with Katamari Damacy, and I think experiencing those things with your team and talking about those experiences will like basically expose ideas that you wouldn't have arrived at yourself. So I think it's really valuable to do all of those things I mentioned, but then also to talk about them with other people.
Yeah, shout out to Katamari, by the way. Hopefully we get another one in the very near future. Anyway, Double Fine, I know, right? Now the Double Fine culture is all about the best idea, no matter where it comes from. And I think your example is a perfect example of that. I guess maybe studio-wide, what are some best practices? We saw Tim Schafer in there. He was with you all. Like, he was the one who was announcing the winner. He was there helping you along the process. What advice would you give to studios that are looking to foster that space specifically?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that at Double Fine, the door just always feels open, and you have to leave multiple doors open for people. And what I mean by that is that, everyone has a different way of expressing themselves and expressing their ideas. Some people are comfortable speaking up in meetings. Some people are comfortable just walking right up to you in the hall. Other people will like want to email you privately afterwards. And I mean, that was the approach that I took personally. We were shooting all those meetings all those times for Broken Age and for some of the other games that we were doing in the interim between then and now. And every so often, I would like email Tim or like write down a little thing or do a little drawing and send it to one of the concept artists. Or I don't know. It's just I communicated in a different way, and I really appreciated that people were receptive to that. So I would say that's like the main thing.
I love
Just
that.
leave multiple doors open.
I think, maybe in companies that maybe big or maybe not so big, maybe there's a fear to, maybe email the head of the studio or something like that. But I think
Hmm.
to your point, the fact that you felt comfortable enough to email Tim is a great example of how you foster a great, creative environment.